You ready, sis?
Yes, I'm
Okay,
ready.
let's get it. What's happening, family? My name is Kat Brooks. For those who don't know me, I'm an Oakland-based artist, activist, radio show host, and this is a series called Cattin Off with Kat Brooks. It is a 4-part curated series for BAMFest International 2025. BAMFest 2025. BAMFest is a multi-venue, multi-day, 31 days, as a matter of fact, international celebration of arts and culture, Black arts and culture. It is based here in Oakland, California, produced by the Lower Bottom Playaz, Oakland's oldest Black theater troupe, as well as the Black Arts Movement Business District Community Development Corporation, which I will from here on out call BAMBD CDC, because I won't get it right again in one breath, and we ain't got takes in this jam. It's a celebration of Black arts and culture and economics in Oakland, California. This is its 6th iteration. And my second interview of this series is with one of my favorite artists in the town. We are joined by RyanNicole, Ryan Austin.
RyanNicole.
We are joined by RyanNicole, Oakland native, MC, playwright, actress, athlete, advocate. Mama, what did I miss, sis?
That's plenty right there.
All of the things. Ryan does all of the things. All right, well, let's hop right into it. Well, first of all, thank you, because I know how busy you are. You are absolutely slammed all the time.
Thank you, Kat.
This amount of time with you is a privilege. So
it's a joy.
The series is called Cattin Off for a reason. You know me well enough to know. And we're gonna.
I know you don't cat off. That's the thing. That's why it's funny.
Cat off.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna guess that a lot of the folks watching know who you are, but for those who've been under a rock, tell us a little bit about RyanNicole.
Hey, well, thank you again, and grateful to be a part of the BAMBDFEST in this way. I am a 3rd-generation Oaklander. My grandmother, my mother, and myself, we have a matrilineal lineage here in this city. And actually, I think I learned that her grandmother before her was here, but we got to figure that out. I haven't learned the records yet. But I'm born and raised, really loyal to the soil. I'm raising my children here in the city. I think the city is critical. It's a vanguard. It's the last line of defense against fascism. It's also just a fertile ground, I think, for, raising a multidisciplinary child, to be honest, and multicultural child. I say all this about Oakland because Oakland is like the 3rd moniker of my identity. I'm a woman, and a mother. I'm a Black woman, and I am an Oaklander. Like it's the tertiary part of my identity. And I've wanted that to be true for my lineage as well. I've worn many hats, but really they all spring from the pen. So I've been a nonprofit executive director. I've always been an advocate for youth and arts. I've been an art creator. Let me see. And that happens in multiple forms, in theater, in music and spoken word, in film and television as well. But it really all does spring from my pen. And that's the, not the quick, but it's the dirty of me. That's who I am.
You've been an MC for quite some time. I mean, longer than I've known you, which is going on 2 decades at this point. A female MC
Yes.
at that, which is way more common now, right, than it used to be. And
Right.
You've told me this story before, but it bears repeating. How you get in the game?
Got in the game through the homies, my buddy KEV kicking every verse, and my other friend Marshawn, who used to call himself Midnight Sun. I was doing spoken word and adamantly against jumping in on the cipher, and and the guys were like, listen, everything that you're doing on your spoken word is really a verse without music. We would love it if you tried it over music, because we really think you're an MC. And I refused for a long time just because of the misogyny and misogynoir that was in the game at the time. It just didn't feel like it was a welcome space for me. But with the backing of my 2 brothers and my partners in rhyme, I went into a cipher, and I've been bit by the bug ever since. That was 2 decades ago. And the reality is, like, I grew up in hip hop. It's been a part of my upbringing. You know, hip hop is 50. I'm shy of 50. And so everything, it was in the drinking water. It was it was wafting through the air. So it's part of my language and my lexicon anyway. And I just formalized it with the guys about 20 years ago.
I only can ask this question because I'm now dating an MC, and I know I can have a little bit of a conversation. But which era of hip hop are you most influenced by?
Oh, I'm influenced by the late 80s, mid 90s hip hop era, which, you know, some people affectionately call the golden era. I think, you know, it's hard though, because I think different people in different generations call their era the golden era. But 89 to 95, 96, maybe even 97 in some ways was just the golden era of hip hop, where you had a better balance of women and men MCs. You had people with a real grasp of what hip hop was. I feel like hip hop itself had an identity. You had people expressing themselves in different ways. You had politicized folks, you had party folks, you had, you know, everybody in between. It really, I think that was the era where hip hop was very clear in its identity as a culture, as an all-encompassing culture that had these different elements within it. And that was right before the takeover, you know, as far as I'm concerned, where there was still some independence, and there was still, you know, the artists still had a grasp on who they wanted to be. And as before, like the corporate, you know, corporate takeover of hip hop.
This is something I don't know, and it's just a question that sprung from what you just said. So when you say corporate takeover, because what I was going to ask you is, right, the golden era, would you differentiate between impact from East Coast or West Coast rap? And actually, can you talk about the way in which the takeover helped turn that from, you know, what Negroes do, right? We talk ish, and to the tragedy. I don't know what else to call it. The tragedies that we've seen spring from then what became a beef between East Coast, West Coast hip hop.
Right. Well, you know, I was a fan at the time. I wasn't really writing bars. I was just kind of consuming and observing from the outside, looking in. And to be honest, I was more of a appreciator of the East Coast origins of hip hop. I felt like there was more education there. You know, I was listening to like Poor Righteous Teachers and Tribe Called Quest, and Moni Love, who I thought was from the Bronx, learned was from London. Queen Latifah, all those people were folks that I identified with. But at the same time, you did have NWA. And to be frank, I wasn't allowed to listen to that because my parents just wasn't having it. But the moments that I would get to listen to it and the little bits that I would receive, I learned were political arguments that they were making, you know, standing on business about what was happening with them in terms of police brutality, the encroachment of law enforcement in their communities, the influx of drugs in their communities, the gang, you know, affiliations and what that really meant at that time. And so I watched that, I observed all of that happening. And then I did observe, you know, this meteoric rise of Tupac and you know, and a Snoop Dogg, to be honest. And what I felt like was a co-optation of their identity and their prowess, and, you know, just an influx of money, you know, into being, you know, an argument around self-identity, self-reliance, contextualizing the struggle to a battle against what was happening, you know, in the East Coast. You also saw, you know, again, the meteoric rise of Biggie at that time. And, you know, and then the rise of some of the other people, Nas and Jay-Z, who was, you know, in the shadows. But you saw that happening, and these icons becoming kind of I wouldn't even call them vanguards, but becoming soldiers for this fight that wasn't legitimate. And I recall watching interviews at the time of Biggie and Pac both being like, nah, but that's my dog though. That's my homeboy, you know, and both of them feeling very confused about the conflagration of this East Coast, West Coast battle. And they became unnecessary sacrifices, you know, in that bloodlust. And honestly, I think the fracture is different now because music and media have become so global. But I feel like, we haven't been able to take hold of our identity as strongly as we did at that time.
A question that, and we don't necessarily have to go down this rabbit hole, but I want to put an exclamation point on this part of the conversation that Dr. Ayodele Nzinga asked. Actually, when we were doing Biko Ice and Martin's Pac and Biggie,
Yes,
the
beautiful work.
right on. Biko's just
Yeah,
and Io was
yeah,
and it was a dope cast, and
yeah.
I will just really quickly say, right, the Kenzel Love, the cat that played Pac, and also the young man that played Biggie. Their first place. Those were their
I know. I
first
heard.
time on.
It was. I'm getting
What?
chills thinking about it right now.
What?
Like, for real, the way that they embodied those gentlemen. My God.
And not even of that generation, right? They are not our age, right? Like that was they put in, them brothers put in work. And the question that Dr. Nzinga would ask is, who benefits from beef?
Right.
From our beef in particular, right? Because I think we can talk about it in hip hop, we can talk about it in so many areas where we are, where I think white supremacy intentionally inserts wedges to keep us from being great.
Let's talk about it. I remember an era where you couldn't see a Pac video on MTV like that. Like, I would have to specifically go to BET or go to the Box or go to Soul Beat to watch videos of both of those guys, of Pac and Biggie. And then all of a sudden, it felt like if it wasn't Real World, it was Pac and Biggie's beef that they were reporting on, that they were streaming regularly. Like, I could wake up at any hour of the night and they'd have they'd have Snoop stepping on the buildings in New York, or they'd have, Biggie talking mess or whatever. And I always felt like that was strange. I didn't have much of an analysis at the time. I was a teenager, but I recall being like, wow, there was a moment just a couple of years ago where I couldn't even see these cats on television. I had to get a sneak tape from somebody, a big cousin or whatever would slide me a tape or slide me a VHS. Now I can't see, I can't get away from them. And now that I'm familiar with their discography, I know that they're only showing one aspect of these guys. And that for me was an aha moment that, the advertisers, the powers that be, were really benefiting from this cooked up argument, and frankly were cooking it up themselves. They were adding fuel to the fire, and where there wasn't really a fire, there were embers maybe. So I saw, who benefited from the beef, and and those tentacles still exist today, wherein you have people reticent to become those kinds of lightning rods, those kinds of celebrities. And I'm not talking about celebrity in the sense of like superstar driving a Maybach. I'm talking about like icons of the movement, people who were on the block and could have a party on the block that was, fueled with, that party that Biggie had on the block. I know that there were gang beefs and there were rivalries and all of that, but those people were out there unifying. The same time you could have Pac, in LA unifying the Bloods and the Crips. Not too many people want to do that anymore, except for Kendrick. I give him many kudos. Many kudos.
And I guess I keep saying it's the last thread. Another thread that I will tug on is when you think about the liberatory power of music, of drum beat, of early hip hop, of Black identity, Black self-love, Black liberation, it's an intentional, and if you're looking at it through the lens of white supremacy, intelligent move to make with the ways in which hip hop was enveloping our communities.
That's right. I mean, even look at if you analyze the frequencies of the music that are popular today, that are, streamed on the airwaves, if you know anything about frequencies, about, the different hertz and everything that impact an emotional center. The music that by and large is being propagated in popular media right now is a depressive frequency. It's sad, it's morose, music is required to reflect the times, All art is required to reflect the time, so there is that. But there's rarely ever a counter frequency, and it begs the question. I used to teach media literacy, and I would ask the students all the time, why? Same question that Ayodele Nzinga is asking. Why do you think that this is the media that's being put in front of us when you know that there's other media available? So similarly today, I ask why. Why are the frequencies of the music that's shared primarily by Black artists a frequency that is depressed and sad and and morose? What are they trying to do? What is trying to happen in this?
All right, I'm going to use that as a segue to keep talking about music, but music of a different frequency. I hope that you were still riding high from the journey that you just took, meteoric journey that you just took with co-founders, with the success of the musical that you wrote with dope ass folks. So first, give your flowers to your crew. I'm gonna let you do it. I'm gonna forget somebody. I'm gonna get in trouble.
Thank you. Shout out to Adisha Adefela and my co-writer Bo Lewis, both of whom have toiled with me in a Zoom room and in physical spaces, co-writing, co-creating this piece called Co-Founders. A lot of co in there because I believe in the collective. We have been at this for a long time, and honestly, when some of us are for it, others of us are struggling to wake up. And that's the benefit of the three-headed monster that we've been. We see different perspectives. We've been able to share that work. And then the other collaborators, I'll just name them as quickly as I can. Jamil Jude, who was our director out of Atlanta. We had Jewel D. Lane, who's also out of Atlanta, our choreographer, supported by Ina Kwayana, who is the granddaughter of Dr. Kwayana in San Diego, who I had the benefit of learning African studies from. I still get chills from that too, because that was a full circle moment. We had Joy Meads, who was our dramaturg, who really was our champion for this work to get our work into the American Conservatory Theater. And she worked hand in hand with us to assure that, these novices, we hadn't written a musical as a collective. We had never written a musical before. So Joy helped walk us through that process. Victoria Theodore, who was our musical director. Will Randolph, the fifth, who is our producer, our musical producer on the show. Brilliant guy, also the son of another icon, Will Randolph the fourth, who is known as a legendary pop and locker of the Boogaloo crew. Also an Emmy Award winner. Yeah, we had a camp. We had some real unicorns and squad on the team to make this happen. David and Ryan Richardson, our visual designers. Yeah, we had squad.
You definitely had squad, and that it showed up in the brilliance that hit that stage. For folks who missed this iteration of it anyway, because I know it's not going nowhere no time soon.
Right.
Talk about where the idea, what it's about, and where the idea came from.
Sure. So the show is about protagonist. Our protagonist is Asada Thompson, a woman from West Oakland, California. She is a coder. She's a nerd who sits in her basement and codes things. Her father, who is deceased, taught her how to code. He learned how to program in the Navy and taught her everything he knew, because he felt like that was a talent and a skill that he was becoming privy to that would lead the future. And he guessed correctly. She learned everything from him because she idolized her father. So she would tinker and build things in the basement with her dad, and surpassed her dad's gifts, but she never got a degree. She just learned how to be brilliant on her own, like many of us do. And she is living in the home, in her childhood home, which used to be her grandmother's, that is now being threatened by gentrification. And she recognizes that in order to save her home, she has to enter into something that's going to get her some money ASAP. And so she leverages her skills and talents to try to get into this accelerator which is an incubator for small tech businesses. So if you think about Airbnb, for example, Airbnb was an idea on a napkin that entered into the Y Combinator in real life, which is an accelerator for tech businesses. Within 8 weeks, Airbnb went from being this to being the Airbnb that we know now. With investments, multi-million-dollar investments, because it was a great idea and they had the right team to prove that they were capable of doing what they have come to be known to do. So she enters into the fictional version of the Y Combinator, which we call the accelerator, or she attempts to enter into it. She gets rejected, and then she hacks her way in. And in hacking in, she meets a silver-spooned white guy from the East Coast who comes in with a sales acumen. And he learns that he needs to partner up with somebody. He partners up with her. She learns she needs to partner up because she needs a beard to hide in that accelerator so that she doesn't get found out. And they partner up, and the madness ensues from there. I won't go much further. We came up with this idea. So to be fair, Bo, our co-writer, co-producer, is the originator of a version of this story. So he created a show called Zip Sloth, which was about 2 guys from the East Coast who travel to the West Coast, the Disneyland of tech entrepreneurs, chasing the modern day gold rush in this tech space in Silicon Valley. They travel here, and they intended to enter into an accelerator to get their business off the ground. Well, he did like a version of that show, and he hired Adisha to play the sloth, because the sloth in the show is a singer. I won't go into the whole story there, but she was very reticent to play a sloth, but she had prayed not long before that to get back into her calling of musical theater. And so she saw this as a sign. She took the gig, and she became the most popular somebody on the stage. And so Bo, being a data nerd, learned from his audience that she was the most popular thing and that he might want to change the story. And so he involved her. And with the idea of changing the story, he knew he needed a writer. And that if he was going to involve Adisha more deeply, she being a Black woman from Oakland, he would probably have to tell a story that was more akin to her life and her lifestyle. And if nothing else, then her identity. And I got the call. I got the call from multiple folks in community who were like, hey, there's this white guy who wants to write a show about Oakland or Black people in tech. Like, maybe you should be involved. And so I took a meeting with Bo and learned that he had the capacity financially and in terms of persistence to tell the story, but he wasn't going to tell it right without some real boots on the ground. And so I dove head first. And that was 8 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I remember just snippets of this thing that was being created. And so when it finally, I was like, oh, that's the thing. And it was a no-brainer to need to go to support. I think part of what we appreciate you deeply, RyanNicole. I think one of the things that was interesting for me in watching, knowing how long the story had been percolating, and how much has changed in 8 years.
Yeah.
Right? We were having one conversation about the impact of tech and gentrification on Black folks in Oakland in particular 8 years ago. I can't say it's a different conversation. I could say everything's exacerbated.
It's that part. It's not a different conversation. And here's the thing, Kat, you and I, and you, I got to give you and Moms for Housing and all those folks real kudos, because what you're able to do, you're a seer, right? Like, the wave is coming when the ripple hits the shore. Before the wave is even visible to a lion's share of the people, you're like, yo, that ripple means there's a tsunami coming. Y'all wake up. And you I have to credit you for always banging the bell to let folks know there is a storm coming. And so 8 years ago, you were banging that drum. There's a storm coming. And many of us on the front line had already felt the effects of that storm. 10 years prior, you had been beating that drum then as well. But it wasn't urgent for a lion's share of the community. It didn't feel urgent. Today, it feels urgent. And that's what, when I joined the team 8 years ago, it felt urgent to me because I also felt like this is a harbinger of things to come. Not just gentrification, but the shift in conversation in politics felt like we were going to get to this exact moment. I was hoping that it would be hyperbolic. I was hoping we'd be able to use creative license and say, hey, AI may become a threat. Maybe you should pay attention to it. But the reality was we got to this moment and it became our lived experience. And so in a lot of ways, like we wrote about AI when AI was like a little conversation in the back pages of a blog, of a tech nerdy blog that nobody was really talking about unless they were in the catacombs of data creation. Fast forward to today, it's on every freaking device. You got to turn it off if you're going to have a conversation. It's telling you that it's going to summarize your chat, like the whole nine. I never would have expected it to be this ubiquitous at this stage, but we knew that we were grabbing hold of a technology and we were grabbing hold of a conversation that had potential to be great and grand, and more than anything would be clarion calls to our community about the perils of unchecked capitalism, unchecked growth, unchecked innovation to what end and for whom. And what the ramifications of that are on real human beings.
And I think we're still seeing and learning, right, the impact, the ramifications specifically of AI on human beings. I mean, there's some horrible stories that are coming out, children killing themselves because their relationship with AI. The studies that are coming out about the impact on the brain of utilizing AI, which is the piece that makes me the angriest about that. Like, because I made a decision I wasn't going to engage. I remember ChatGPT or whatever the hell it's called came, and my team was like, "Oh, we can." I said, "Absolutely not. I want nothing to do with it." I'm telling you, there's something that's not the business about this. That's what I will say. The ancestors saw fit to give me my organizing brain and my third eye. I do see stuff.
Yeah.
What I didn't see, RyanNicole, I knew it was going to be bad. I knew gentrification was going to be bad, and I knew tech and gentrification were going to enter, or we're in an unholy matrimony that was going to spawn demons. I knew that.
Yes. Yeah.
What I could not have foreseen was that, and I'm just going to take Oakland. Like we watched it happen in San Francisco.
Yeah.
What I could not foresee was sitting in conversation with you in almost August 2025 with an almost completely conservative city council, with political superstars who threaten violence against Black women, with the potential next mayor, if we don't handle our business in 2 years, being the black face of MAGA, leading the city. Like that is what I didn't see. Not here. I knew we were going to be in trouble, but I didn't know here. And I know why we were targeted, right? We were targeted because of the yous and the me's and the moms for housing and the legacy of the Black Panther Party and the Dr. and Zingas. I mean, if I keep naming, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm not gonna but because we got revolutionary fire here, and because we changed the tone and tenor for the country, and if they could do it here.
Yep. They know they can do it anywhere. And that's the thing. I'm sorry.
No, go.
When the white supremacists came marching through Berkeley, do you remember that?
Yes, I remember.
I know you do, right?
I know you do. Reasons why I remember.
Yeah, I won't. I wasn't gonna say nothing. But when they did that, when they had the audacity to show up at Hasta Muerte coffee shop, I said, oh, they're sticking their toe in. They gonna see if we really gonna bite, if we really about that life. They're nothing if not patient, and organized. And I felt like Henny Penny and Chicken Little screaming, "The sky is falling, y'all!" Like, look, these, I'm not gonna use expletives right now, but these cats are marching in the dubs. They're walking through the dubs. We're gonna let that happen? Wow. Okay. So, I think that was a litmus test back then, to determine whether or not we was really froggy, and I think it caught us off guard. And I think they got the data that they needed in that moment.
They found out folk was a little froggy when they showed
Well,
up
yeah.
at Nia Wilson's event. I mean,
Hello.
And I mean, I still have conversations with people today that are like, "Wait, white supremacists are here?" I'm like, "Oh my God."
Baby.
They've been here. And I remember it was around that same time I was walking down Broadway and I saw this white dude with the shaved head and whatever. And because I'm from Vegas, which was one of the places in the 90s where the white supremacist neo-Nazi movement really exploded, I always go from head to feet because I always want to see what color laces you have on.
Right.
And he watched me go from his head to his feet, and there were red laces. And I came back up and he looked at me and I looked at him, and we just both sort of went, not right now, but
here we go.
Right.
Yeah.
And we kept walking, and I was like, something has changed forever.
Something has changed. Yeah. That's it. So, there are probably sleeper cells, and I'll leave it at that. But yeah, we got work to do.
I'm trying to think of where I want to go next.
Well, let me say this much, because I just left something open. There's work to do, and that feels fearful. I'm also a solutionary, and I think a lot of people don't recognize the power of cultural contributions. The reason why co-founders is important to me, and the reason why I spent so long investing in this moment, is because I recognize, and I've been saying this and you guys are going to get tired of me, but I recognize culture moves the needle. I know that if I can put people in the room who would otherwise, the electorate in the room who would otherwise be, sitting back passive, watching Netflix stream until Netflix says, are you done watching this? If I could put people in the room who feel hopeless, feel like there's nothing that they can do, and create a show that appeals to them, that attracts their senses, appeals to their senses, hides the broccoli like Ashley and I were talking about earlier, but hits them with the medicine, a little bit unexpectedly, then I know I've shifted the way people think. I know I shift the way people feel, and I know I've sparked something in them that will be with them forever. It'll be a nagging presence that they'll have to answer to. And so that's my hope, is that co-founders has infected people. And it's not the most radical work when you look at it in the sum of its parts. But when you think about all of it coming together to get to this moment, it is quite radical. Yeah.
There's a perfect segue actually to where I want to go, and that's the role of art in this moment. And I'll just put another explanation on your brilliance. I say all the time, I say I'm not going to get everybody to come to 14th and Broadway and listen to me scream the police, but if I can get you into a 99C black box theater and tell you Tasha McKenna's story, right, then we're still having a conversation.
That's right. That's right.
We are having this conversation, RyanNicole.
Yes.
And I'm gonna do two parts because I'm clocking time and I want to get it both in.
Right.
One at a time, where there's an all-out assault by a fascist administration on the arts, right? The gutting of federal funding of arts organizations. Now, some of us, we work inside artistic side of organizations that never ain't had that kind of money,
right?
And yet, and still, again, it's I think it's a harbinger of things to come, right? Because there's a reason that they come for the artists first. There's a reason, and we're also having this conversation, RyanNicole, after some of us just engaged in a knockdown, drag out, ugly fight with our city over $300,000. $300,000 to invest in one position and benefits.
Right. Oh,
in the arts department. And so I'm
right.
holding those two pieces of things like, because I really did. When I looked at how many times I went to city council, the rallies that we
Yes.
called, paying, because I paid my team to do
It,
flyers. And
it costs you $300,000. Yeah.
what is happening?
Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
happening? And so I get concerned because I've always been like think global, act local. I've always been clear that right here is where we can do the most. And I'm like, really? I gotta fight. I gotta fight you.
Yeah.
I gotta fight you. But then you want to turn around. I'm gonna go there. You don't have to. I go there so that nobody else has to.
Speak on it.
But then I want to see but then you about co-founders and how important Black theater. I had my listen. For those you watching, you were on tape. You were on tape. Lauding the importance of co-founders in Black theater. You just gutted it and made me fight. Made us. It wasn't me. Made us fight you too. Fight you to get this money. Come on.
Yeah. You said a lot of things right there. Well, go ahead.
No. You go. This is about you, not me. People listen to me.
You said a lot of things. No, I love it. You said a lot of things. First of all, you're on tape. You're on tape. You're on record. You've gone on record celebrating the ingenuity, to quote, of Black arts and Black innovation. And so our job now, the ball is in our court, and granted, we just spent a lot of time putting people's feet to the fire. Now we got to continue to put feet to the fire. The other thing that I think is important is like, we've expanded the consciousness of the electorate. What I love about the group that was in the room the day that we won back that funding is that group is always there, and you can count on you and Kev Choice and Rashida Chase and the folks, Vanessa Wong and Evan Bissell and a lot of those people to be in that room arguing for arts and culture and the value of arts and culture. But at the same time, on the flip side of that coin, I can always count on those people. I want to see other people in the room, right? So we've expanded the consciousness, hopefully, and we continue to expand the consciousness of the electorate. We need the electorate to pull up. And so to hold the folks who say that Black ingenuity is important, hold their feet to the fire. I think, Kat, that moment, while it was valued at $300,000 on paper, was a moment of, it was a fight for values. One of my favorite biblical verses says that we fight not against flesh and bone, but against principalities and spirits that hold themselves high, right? And so I think in the same thing, like, we're looking at dollars, we're looking at $300,000, which is piddly. It's a piddly amount. And we all, each individually, spent more than that to fight for that money. But what we really fought for was the value, retaining the value of arts and culture in the city. And all we did was keep a thread of arts and culture in the budget, so that these folks that are in our city council, which it baffles me too, that they could, on the one hand, again, pop their collar, ride on snails down Broadway, celebrate their celebrity du jour, right? They could do that at the same time as they cut funding, as they reallocate funds to the police budgets, when they know that this city really is, the lifeblood of the city is its arts and culture, and always has been. And so it is, I think it's really incumbent upon us, because I still believe that we have a city council that has to answer to its electorate. It has to answer to its people. It has to.
For me, that was the other value in that moment.
Yes.
Because it was remembering because some of them is new.
Yeah.
Right. And you come post-COVID. Right. So, and I'm going to say, because I say names. And so when I was talking and John Nani was rolling her eyes at me, I was like, oh, you just don't know. You about to run that money back. You just don't know. You about to run it. You don't know. Sit there and be all, you don't understand who we are. Right. So the value for me in that moment too was us remembering and to remember them. That's it. Us remembering and to remember them, and remember who stood 10 toes down. And, the benefit is, I think there are some people who can be converted. I'm trying to keep the silver lining. I'm trying to keep the optimism at 4. Balance me out. Yeah. Well, I mean, we won that back.
And that's something I'm gonna hold on to, and I'm gonna ride it till the wheels fall off.
That's
I'm
right.
also going to leverage the hell out of that to assure that we have an adequate budget, because 300,000 is way far away from the 5.2 million that we deserve.
That's right.
We,
You taught me something, RyanNicole, that I want you to teach the people. And it was, you were driving to, I think, a matinee of co-founders when all this was happening. And you were talking about, I'm gonna get it wrong, but the four largest drivers of economic, or the four largest infusers of economics inside of the city. Run that down for the folks. Yeah.
property taxes. Let me see. Property taxes is number one. What's the second one? Oh gosh.
I just remember the arts one.
I know arts is third, I believe. But it's important to know that. I think, people believe, I just want you to know property taxes. So home ownership is the number one driver of economics in this city. I believe arts and culture is third. And I have to look back at my report. Normally when I'm ranting, I have just read a report and then I get frustrated and then I have to talk to you guys on socials. But as an economic driver in this city, arts and culture is third. So when I think it's important to understand the ramifications of that, much of our arts and culture hasn't been funded. Much of it has been, we've had to bring in outside resources. We've had to invest and reinvest the dollars that we make from events. We've had to figure out how other people can sponsor our things. But with all of that effort, we still become the third economic driver in this city. And so it is entirely asinine to have, our city council not understand that. And that's been true for the entirety of the time that the budget has existed. Arts and culture has been the third largest contributor to this city.
I think you said like $83 million. I could be wrong, but
I might have said that
annually. Yeah. But it was something like that, because I went, well, wow, because what they said to us was, well, what you don't understand, what you simple people just don't understand, is that there were budgetary decisions to be made.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, we actually do understand, because some of us are executive directors that do budgets all the time, and some of us are orgs with budgets have been telling you for 15 years that this is what was going to happen if you kept giving the police this much money. But
exactly.
Hey, you're right. Hey. What do we know? I really quickly do have to lift it, because I keep saying city council. I do have to uplift Councilmember Carol Fife from District 3.
Carol Fife, thank you.
Who was the inside champion to make sure that this got done. I'm about to have to let you go. And for folks, because I think we said before we started recording, that noise that you hear in the back is babies getting
singing. Off. So sorry if you guys.
No, it's that. Great. No, okay. I'm so glad that has been the soundtrack to this conversation, right?
Yes.
Because it's the undercurrent of what we're saying.
That's right.
I have been I sometimes can be reactionary with mine, because I love us so much, and I really do try to be strategic. And in this moment, I have really just been like when Trump 2.0 happened, when ICE descended on Los Angeles, when the Marines came, I told my team and myself, I said, stand down. Stand down, because this is not the time for you, Kat, and for this work that you are blessed to be a part of, to be reactionary, right? You actually have to take the time to figure out where the most impact. There's gonna be plenty of people being reactionary, and that reactionary is important.
That's right.
But what can actually be impactful, shift conditions, or empower other people to do the work of shifting conditions? And so I've been sitting both as an artist and an organizer, and it's not. Sometimes it's the same conversation. Sometimes it's different, and somewhere in there they get married.
Right.
Very long-winded way of saying I am still. I mean, I think we figured out some stuff in terms of addressing the issue of Black immigrants being disappeared and their plight in this moment. But I'm trying to figure out what my role in this moment is. And I know you well enough to know that your brain turns around the same things. Like, what am I supposed to do now that's going to make a difference and matter? And I'm just wondering what that conversation has been like for you. Have you landed? Still in process? Where that's at?
Still in process. I'm educating myself, because I never believe like I have all the answers. I'm constantly reading. I'm constantly learning in groups and community. What I do believe, though, is that we're living in a time of paradox. So we have to be double conscious in a way. And we have to be two people. So on the one hand, I think we need to be very public facing and loud in certain areas, and in other ways we need to be very quiet, clandestine, and strategic. And that's what I'm reckoning with at the moment, is my own double consciousness and how that is in my practical life. And so I think you and I were having this conversation in community the other day, that there are some things that are just for us, and some of that sentiment and practice might feel extreme to some people, and that's okay. We got to get comfortable with that extremism, because we are in extreme times. We're insulated. I think we're in the wake before the storm. And then some things, some of our actions and conversations need to be very public. The challenge that I feel right now is that the globe has literally sped up. Time has literally quickened. And so our obligation is to stay, sorry, the babies.
That's great. I love it. I love it.
Our obligation is to stay on the treadmill, keep pace on the treadmill, while concurrently taking our breaks. And I know I'm speaking in platitudes and poetry, but it's kind of in that space. I'm still in this proverbial space around what exactly to do. I can only speak in parable, because I think to be too prescriptive is to be irresponsible, if you know what I'm saying. So what I can encourage people, if it resonates with you, if the double consciousness, double-mindedness resonates with you, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Being two ways at once, being in two places at the same time. I think get very comfortable in that, because I think we're going to have to be that way for a little while.
Yes. RyanNicole, thank you so much. Y'all, we've been talking to the one, the only RyanNicole, Oakland native, MC, playwright, actress, athlete, advocate, mama, wife, comrade, friend. And I will just say this, for as long as I can remember, as long as from the first time when I had no money, no nothing, we called you. Please come say something at this rally for this dead Black body. You've always come. You've always been there. Brought the fire. So thank you so much.
It's our assignment, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right.
Ashley Smiley is going to do something.
Mm-hmm.